where not just women are in danger, but all marginalized people, where being uniquely different right now might truly be considered a crime. It seems as though we had all slipped into a false sense of comfort, that justice would prevail and that good would win in the end. Well, good did not win this election, but good will win in the end. So what today means is that we are far from the end. Today marks the beginning of our story. The revolution starts here. The fight for the right to be free, to be who we are, to be equal. Let's march together through this darkness, and with each step, know that we are not afraid. That we are not alone. That we will not back down. That there is power in our unity, and that no opposing force stands a chance in the face of true solidarity. And to our detractors that insist that this march will never add up to anything,
Boston Red here with Friday Java, a weekly magazine of political theory, polling, and commentary. It is part of the history called people that make up this fascinating journey. We are part of the Obama network. For that, we make no apologies. What we pledge to do is give you the facts on a bridge to history. What body politics is, the most up-to-date theories of political science and psephology. Stay tuned for this incredible ride. Boston Red, peace out.
Friday the 13th. 2019. Friday Jobber from WBRN Radio and on the Boston Red Network. This is a Boston Red here in the Jerry Pippin Memorial broadcast booth. We'll have the crystal ball here today, Dr. Larry Sabato's shop. And the title, this is by Kyle Klondike, Biden's Challenge, Iowa and New Hampshire. We'll talk about that. And we'll talk about the debates last night. We'll read a little from the transcript of the debate, courtesy of the Washington Post. And we'll also do that on the week that was. We'll just start it out and sort of set up the so-called debate and how it happened. It was at the historic Southern Texas University, a historic African-American university in Houston, Texas. The funeral of Robert Mugabe, the freedom fighter and leader of Zimbabwe, will be on Saturday. And the last news we had was he will be buried in a family plot in his village. We'll have coverage of that. We've been preparing some things over the last few days. Someplace hidden in the vault, the temporarily only, is a wrap-up on Brexit and the renegade Prime Minister Boris Johnson and the deterioration of democracy within the UK. We also have Numbers Man this weekend. That's our macroeconomics program. And we sort of started to dive into healthcare and the status of healthcare, something we'll be talking about for a very long time. We have one or two studies here. We'll do something with it. Those are some of the things we have, quote-unquote, in the works. Robert Mugabe will probably appear on Sunday or somewhere around there in Numbers Man, and we'll decide what we'll do with health care. And we'll look at the debate. We normally don't cover debates, but from the transcript we'll hit the high points, at least the introduction of some of the candidates from last night and where they plan to go in the scheme of things. The Texas Wildcatter, billionaire T. Boone Pickens, has died. We usually use a phrase from him. He was an oil tycoon, and we on Numbers Man talk about the price of oil at one time around $15 a barrel, which basically, if you went into 70s dollars, it would be about where it is now. Nonetheless, he has died in Dallas, Texas. So we'll go now to the crystal ball. And the crystal ball is the Center, University of Virginia's Center for Politics. Incidentally, in Charlottesville, a Virginia court has ruled that the statues, big argument over those, that's why they had a demonstration there, can remain because, quote-unquote, they are war memorials. That's under Virginia law, and the Democrats will change that if they ever get a majority to do it, period. And we remember Heber, who lost her life because of those damn monuments. Nonetheless, the title here, the Biden challenge Iowa and New Hampshire, and the crystal ball as opposed to our Ouija board model that we use. Anyway, the takeaways, the biggest threat to Biden is the nomination calendar. We've been looking at it a bit. He's relying on support from African Americans, but the electorate, of course, Iowa and New Hampshire, are entirely almost European. However, even one or more of Biden's rivals best him in the leadoff states, so they may not necessarily have the appeal to the critical African American bloc, which the way it's set up, the impact will be dubious. As Democrats prepare to debate, we'll leave that one out. They've already debated. Democrats hoping for Biden to collapse may find themselves in the position of Donald Trump's opponents from 4 years ago by acting their own version of waiting for got you, anticipating the arrival of something that never arrives. Well, that's a little bit different here. DJ Trump had a different primary calendar, different types of opponents. If Biden retains his lead into next year, although it may be the thing that ultimately trips him up, is the Democratic nominating calendar. And this is a calendar built on support from African Americans. Hardly any voters will participate in the first two contests. We call them followers of O.J. Simpson. The first is Iowa on February the 3rd, the day after the Super Bowl. And, of course, most people will be drunk in Iowa. The New Hampshire primary will be on the 11th. According to exit polls, the Democratic electorate in both states is over 90% European. Opportunities for two overwhelming European electorates present to other candidates is obvious based on current demographics-based support for Biden and his two rivals. They're trying to turn this into a three-person contest with our own Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren of the Commonwealth. According to the most recent YouGov poll here, Biden leads with 40% among African Americans nationally, while Warren and Sanders and Kamala Harris are well behind at about 10% apiece. Meanwhile, Warren leads with European voters with 26%, with Biden at 18% and Bernie at 16% behind her. The Washington Post ABC poll released over the weekend tells a similar story. Biden was at 38% with a broader universe of non-European voters. They call them white, we call them Europeans. We want to differentiate. With Bernie Sanders at 19%, Liz Warren at 12%. Meanwhile, the three top candidates were all at top around 20% with European voters. This is what doesn't bowl as well. Biden leads 40% among African Americans nationally, while Warren and Kamala Harris are well behind at about 10% each. Meanwhile, Warren leads with European voters at 26%, Biden at only 18%, and Bernie at 16% behind her. But that's a statistical tie. It's how this is reported. Warren leads with European voters at 26%. Oh, we did that. Sorry about that. The Washington Post poll released over the weekend a similar story. They have Biden at 38%, with a broader universe of non-European voters, with Sanders at 19 and Elizabeth Warren at only 12. Meanwhile, the top three candidates were all around 20%, with European voters. They'll have to do much better than that. Whoever's in the general election is already lowering expectations of Iowa and New Hampshire, perhaps rightly so. One to suspect Iowa and New Hampshire to be amongst the most challenging states in the country for a candidate like Biden, given the racial disparities there. The danger for Biden is that he might lose both states, which could prompt a ripple effect, but we've heard him elsewhere. Nevada. On the 22nd, Bernie is currently leading in Nevada, followed by South Carolina. Thought South Carolina was next. That was where Barack Obama headed south and found followers of O.J. Simpson. Biden will not have a problem there. Bernie will do better in South Carolina than Liz Warren. The Silver State, and this is Nevada, provided a real test of preferences of non-European voters. In 16, the caucus was split. 60% Europeans to 40% non-Europeans. Pimento State, that is South Carolina. The Democratic Party in South Carolina is an African-American party. About 60% African-American, actually more than that. But the Democratic Party will not carry anything in South Carolina. The two past contest Democratic presidential nominees battle showed how Iowa and New Hampshire may or may not change the race. Hillary Clinton favored to sweep Iowa and New Hampshire, helping open the door to Barack Obama. Barack Obama won Iowa, and he lost in New Hampshire. And Bernie Sanders actually won Iowa, and it was stolen from him. And of course, he capped the New Hampshire primary. The New Hampshire primary used to be enough to force a person out of the race, but nonetheless, she survived by going to a lot of those southern states. Key difference between Clinton's main challenge in '68 and 2016 was that Obama, dynamic African-American politician, had lots of growth potential among African-American voters, no doubt brought the turnout out, but so did Brother Kerry. African-Americans were standing in lines to 2 in the morning in Kansas City. After the Honorable Louis Farrakhan of Chicago simply put a sign up, vote. And African Americans voted in numbers for Brother Kerry beyond what the group had ever voted. He turned his potential into reality, riding big margins with African American voters to narrow a natural victory over Clinton. 8 years later, Clinton's opponent, Bernie Sanders, was unlike President Obama. He didn't present the obvious appeal. Well, he didn't present the obvious appeal, no doubt about that, but his primary was the Democratic Party, and the rules suppressed the vote for Bernie Sanders. In South Carolina, she done better, and in later contests, she won the nomination comfortably after robbing Bernie Sanders. One factor that might boost Biden if he struggles in Iowa and New Hampshire is that if Warren and Sanders edge out each other in those states, neither of those candidates may be able to capitalize on those victories by boosting their support. Don't count on that. Bernie is doing much better amongst African Americans. In other words, Biden may be able to survive losses in both. They're preparing the public for that. Since 1976, nearly every nominee of either party won at least one of the contests. Biden is not slated to win Iowa 1. Things could change between now and February. The sole exception, Bill Clinton. In 1992, all of that race deserves something of an asterisk because other Democratic candidates, including Bill Clinton, essentially forfeited Iowa in deference to Tom Harkin. We supported Tom Harkin. If possible, exists, but Biden could be second, he could be third also, behind Liz Warren. Liz Warren and Bernie Sanders have excellent organizations in both Iowa and New Hampshire. But this also points to an intriguing other alternative, such as possibility if Biden flutters, his African support would be splintered, which might open up perhaps a nomination to Sanders or Elizabeth Warren. Comes out of Iowa and New Hampshire, better position than the others, and perhaps migrate to someone other than Warren. Anyway, they're dreaming there. They have Kamala Harris in the back room, and the Senator Booker of New Jersey. And they're particularly not within Senator Barack Obama. First of all, they're not as well known. Secondly, Kamala Harris comes from a prosecutorial background, and Senator Booker, the former mayor of the urban ghetto of Newark, New Jersey, and the water problems that it still has. Harris and Booker are way behind Barack Obama in 2007, no doubt about that. They are in the low single digits. They are languishing not behind not just Biden, but as well as others. Anyway, the fallout from North Carolina. We talked about this contest, and they talked about the contest. Was Bishop defeated veteran and a nominee Dan McCready by 2 points, but the 2 points were about 5,000 votes. The crystal ball originally had this in as a toss-up, then they said lean Republican. Our take on that all along was that Bishop would pull that contest out. And there's even some history to that particular situation. Happened to us in Georgia also. The second time around, the Democratic or the progressive candidate in this case, different from McCready, ended up with less votes than at the first possible situation. Trump came to Fayetteville, North Carolina. That's a military reservation there. And they got out the troops, literally. And in the rural areas, their rating for this is North Carolina 9, next year likely Republican. Meanwhile, Democrats can point to McCready's considerably outperforming Hillary Clinton's 12-point loss there in 16, which was a positive theme for Democrats, but no cigar. While the presidential effect on behalf of Bishop may have helped, Trump's overall unpopularity once again threatened GOP control of a district that is not as competitive on paper. Tuesday night results indicate. The results were fairly similar to that of last year's special election. That's in Ohio 12, a district of Republicans narrowly held, but where Democrats ran about 10 points in the margin ahead of Clinton. That's not unusual. She didn't pay attention. The two races, Ohio 12 last year and North Carolina 9 this year, were similar in that Democrats shot to early leads based on Democrat-leaning early votes. Republicans made up sufficient ground. It used to be the other way around. Republicans used to always vote absentee. That was before we had early voting, or in some states they call it convenience voting. The usual pattern in North Carolina, Ohio, as well as Florida and some others. Republicans make up sufficient ground on Election Day. Well, Democrats get their vote out while they can get it. Republicans also ended up holding in North Carolina third. There was no contest there. The representative there was Greg Murphy, won by 24 points. That used to be Walter Jones's district. Walter Jones is more of a Democrat. One thing to watch North Carolina going forward with Democrats attempt to use their power on the state Supreme Court to force a redrawn of the state's Republican-drawn congressional gerrymander. The court threw out the state's legislative districts, although they might not be sufficient time for a similar lawsuit on a state congressional impact on 2020 election. North Carolina 9 do-over wraps a blow finally on the 2018 election. Was the last one it was called because of fraud. Democrats won 235 seats. Republicans won 200. Republicans won 241 seats, and Democrats won 190. So Democrats netted 41 from November to 2016 to November 2018, 2 years, to win back the House. Republicans would lead to net at least 18 states, although the number would actually be 19. Justin Amish, he's now an independent. That is Michigan 3. Meanwhile, Republicans would have to defeat him in order to be 100% sure the seats occupancy would back the Republicans in the 2021 Speaker's vote. Now, this is kind of interesting here. This is Murphy, safe Republican there, and the crystal ball had this district, North Carolina 9, as a toss-up and then like a Republican. The problem there was with the polling from the very onset was the McCready was in the margin of error, and you had some private polls by various campaigns out there. Very, very little public polling in that race. Race is very fluid. So in other words, basically you went down a 10-point drop. I don't have my cheat sheet there, but DJ Trump won that district, what did they say, about 12 points there. And this was a 2-point race. The other district, of course, Jones is 12 points. So 2 points. How that would affect in North Carolina? Well, DJ Trump is underwater in North Carolina. So how that goes, we don't know at this point in time. But again, we have to look forward here. I'm not sure. We have the Cook Report data here. The Cook people partnered with Kaiser. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, this is the Henry Kaiser Family Foundation, and this is a bit about swing votes leading up to 2020 election by Audrey Kermey and Molly and Bodie. And, of course, Charlie Cook and Amy Walters, they partnered together. I think we'll have this particular one, and we'll get to Ms. Walter and Mr. Cook later. And this was published on September the 5th. More than 1 year out from the general election, there are many factors that could influence voters' decisions to either vote for DJ Trump as Democratic nominee or stay home in November the 3rd of 2020. These factors include the characteristics of the eventual Democratic nominee, the view of President Trump, how motivated voters are feeling about the election, the last analysis from the Kaiser Family Foundation in collaboration with the Cook Report. One thing you'll find in here is the Cook Report, like many of these organizations, the Crystal Ball partnered with other people. You're seeing more people out there. A large share of voters are already firm about their plans to vote in 2020. 63%. There's still a substantial share, 30%, who said they may make up their minds. They have not made them up, with 3 in 10 voters still up for grabs. This data notes examines the demographics of swing voters. Those who either report that they are undecided about their vote in 2020 are leaning towards a candidate, but could change over. The key findings of the report: 3 in 10 voters are swing voters, meaning they haven't made up their mind about who they plan to vote for in 2020. While swing voters look similar to their decided counterparts on many demographics, they tend to be younger, more moderate, and less engaged in national politics. Nearly 1/4 of swing voters say they didn't vote in the 2018 election. That's not unusual. 22% are in the 2016 presidential election. 24%, quite a large number there. It's important to note that not all swing voters could potentially change their vote to support the other party's candidate. About half of swing voters, 19% of all voters, are truly persuadable, and that's a very small percentage there. The other party candidate, about half of, I need to read my screen here. These voters either say they are undecided about whom they plan to vote, 8%, or say that while they are probably going to vote for either DJ Trump or the Democratic nominee, there's a chance they could vote for the other party's candidate, 8% there. The share of swing voters, 14% of all voters, say that they probably are going to either vote for DJ Trump or the Democratic nominee, and there's no chance they will vote for the other party's candidate, while they say there is no chance, they could choose to not to vote at all. In other words, these folks may not change their mind to support another candidate, and if they don't like what they see from the parties they could just stay home. Many factors could influence voters' decisions to either vote for the president or the Democratic nominee, or even stay home on election day. This analysis finds issues like climate change, health care, we all talked about last night, immigration, and the economy could influence swing voters' choice in 2020. Democrats may have the edge on the three issues among swing voters. Climate change, 38-point advantage there. Health care, 18% there, and immigration, 10%, while DJ Trump, on the other hand, may have an edge on the economy, 12% for now. And as the 2020 campaign continues, this data indicates the Democratic Party may benefit more when the focus is on climate change, healthcare, and immigration, while Trump may have an advantage on the economy amongst groups of swing voters who truly are not that progressive. The issue of healthcare means different things to different voters on different sides of the aisle, and 44% of swing voters who prefer the Democratic nominee on healthcare often responses related to increased access to healthcare insurance as a reason while they support the Democrats. Swing voters who prefer DJ Trump on healthcare do not appear to be rallying behind a single healthcare issue, but often varying response. Lowering the amount of people pay for healthcare ranks higher for both sets of swing voters, 19 and 16. Who are the swing voters? Nearly two-thirds of voters say they have already made their mind up about which candidate they plan to vote for. About one-third of the voters, 34%, say they're definitely going to vote for the Democratic nominee, while 3 in 10, 29%, say they're definitely going to vote for DJ Trump. This leaves 3 in 10 voters as critical voting bloc, commonly known as swing voters. This group either said they are probably going to vote for the president, 9% are probably going to vote for the Democrats, 13%, and say they are undecided how to vote, about 8%. Very small percentage there. 3 in 10 say they have not made their minds up about which candidate they vote for in 2020. And 29% definitely not voting for DJ Trump. 9% probably, and probably going to vote for the Democrats. 13% definitely going to vote for the Democrats. 34%. And the undecided just leaves 8%. 3 in 10 voters say they've not made their minds up about which candidate they're going to vote for. This is important to note, but not all swing voters could potentially change their vote to support the other party's candidate. Amongst voters who say they are probably going to vote for either the president or the nominee, fewer say there is a chance they will vote for the other party's candidate. And this is polarization. Poll after poll have talked about this. Amongst the voters, 5% say they would probably vote for Trump, but there is a chance they would vote for the Democrat, while 3% say they would probably vote for the Democratic candidate, but a chance of voting for DJ Trump. Few swing voters say there is a chance they will vote for the other party's candidate. Definitely voted for DJ Trump, 29%. Probably voting for DJ Trump, 4%. The undecided again is 8% there. So a vast majority of Democratic voters, 85%, and most Republican voters, 70%, say they aren't going to cast a vote for the other party's candidate. And this changed things. You used to have a little different kind of voting patterns in America. 6 in 10 voters who identify as Democrats and Democrat-leaning independents say they're definitely going to vote Democrat. An additional 16% say they're probably going to vote for the Democratic candidate, and there's no chance they would vote for DJ Trump. On the other side of the coin, They say out. 6 in 10 Republicans, and Republican-leaning voters say they will definitely vote for DJ Trump. An additional 9% say they'll probably vote for ODJ too. 1/4 of swing voters said they did not vote in the past national election. Now, this is very interesting here. Forget about what the Russians did. Percentage who said they didn't vote, total 16%. Among swing voters, 22%. Total swing voters were 22. 26% voted Democrat, 20% Independents, pretty much split, and 21% Republicans. Percentage who say they did not vote in, that was 2018. 2016, 17%. Total swing voters was 24% in that election. Democrats, 33%. Independents, 23%, slightly larger, but did not vote in the Clinton DJ Trump election, and 21% of the Republicans did not vote. Decided voters plus versus swing voters. Most Democratic swing voters look similar to their counterparts, voters who say they've already decided who they're going to vote for in the 2020 election. Age, we look at a share of the demographic group. That's either swing voters or decided voters, and this is swing voters here. The total is 30%. This is of younger people, and 63% decided voters. 18 to 29, this is Bernie Sanders demographic. 44% are swing voters, and 47% decided. 30% to 49% are swing voters, and 62% have decided there. As we move up to 50 to 64, 27% are swing voters, and 6% are decided. And the older, 65 and older, that's Bernie, Liz, Warren, and me. 22% are swing voters and 72% decided. With males, 32% are swing, 62% decided. Females, 28% and 64% there. Education levels, high school, 28% are swing voters, 64% have decided. Some college, a new category, 31% are swing, 63% have decided. And college, 32% are swing and 61% decided. We go to the rural, swing voters in the rural areas. 28% swings, 61%, pretty hole in there, decided. 27% are swing, and 65% are decided. Excuse me. In suburbia, 32% are swinging, and 62% are decided. Perhaps as expected, decided voters are more partisan, with strong ties to the parties. Half of political independents have not made up their minds who to vote for in 2020. And less partisan voters are more likely to have not made up their mind yet. And Democrats and Democratic leaners, 24% are swing, and 72% have decided. Amongst the pure type, independents, 51% are swings, 24% are decided. Republicans, 31% are swing, 64% have decided. With liberals, 19% are swing, 79% have decided. Moderates, 43%, you see the numbers went up, those are swing voters, 48% have decided. And with conservatives, only 22% are swing voters, and 70% have decided. And on ODJ Trump, 13% are swing, and 85% have decided there. Somewhat approved, 69% are swing, and 19% have decided. Somewhat disapproved, 60% are swing, and this is where the action is, and 21% have decided. Strongly disapproved, 23% are swing, and 77% there. And I think we looked at the demographic percentages here of various, we won't go through that again. Pure swing voters say they are paying a lot of attention to national government and politics. A lot of swing voters, 39% percentage, decided voters who say that, 68%, total 57%, paying some attention, 44% of the swing, 24% of decided, and little or none, 17% of the swing, and 8% there. Swing voters say they are paying a lot of attention to the national government. Swing voters, 30% in this, and 62% decided, so forth and so on. A lot, about 39%. Decided 68%, asked more attention, and some, 44% of swing voters, 24% of the decideds, and 22% of those people are definitely voting for Trump, 26% for the Democrats. Swing voters who said it really matters who wins, percentage of swing voters who say it really matters who wins, 66% and 92% of the decideds. Somewhat matters, 27% of the swing and 6% of the decided for a total of 13. Doesn't really matter, 7% of the swing goes way, way down there. Which issues could swing the election? Many factors there, including characteristics of the candidate. A lot of polls have talked about that. Democrats have an edge on 3 issues. We started out with that. Healthcare, immigration. Democratic candidates have 38 percentage points on climate change. But climate change is way down in the minds of most. Healthcare was a big issue last night in the debates. And so we went. Well, let's see what else we got going here. Share of America. We'll just start this out, but we'll finish this up with better studies. This is from the New York Times on the share of Americans with healthcare insurance declined in 2018. The drop, despite a strong economy, was the first since the Depression, 2009. At least partially caused by effects to weaken the Affordable Care Act. Ben Castleman wrote this article. One of the people there was on September the 10th. Few Americans are living in poverty, but for the first time in years, more of them lack health care. About 27.5 million people, 8.5% of the population, lack health care insurance, up from 2018, from 7.9 the year before. The Census Bureau reported it was the first increase since the Affordable Care Act, and that passed almost 10 years ago, 2010. Experts say it was partially the result of the Trump administration efforts to undermine the law. The same report shows the share of Americans living in poverty fell to 11.8%, the lowest since 2001. Decline in health care coverage reverse improvements since the Affordable Care Act was established. The late great Jerry Pippin talked about this. The more it went along, more people would like it. The law passed, more than 15% of Americans lack coverage. So now it's actually more out there. It's very frightening that if this happens now, with the unemployment rate at 3.7%, and what's going to happen when the employer coverage gets worse. That is from Elliot Fishman, a senior director at Consumer Group Families USA, top Medicaid official in the Obama administration. There's a fear we could really see a dramatic increase in the uninsured rate. We're beginning to see that. And Democratic candidates talk about this, several of them including Biden blame health on DJ Trump. Census Bureau support also had good news for the White House. Poor households experience growth in income gains, a significant reversal from decades of rising inequality, and a sign that the recovery is at last delivering income gains to the middle class and lower income families. Not very much. The report is the latest evidence that strong job markets creating opportunities for a wide array of workers. That is from Michael Strand. He's at the American Enterprise Institute. And very little there. Democrats highly likely to evidence that income gains have been slow since Barack Obama's final year. Median income grew at 5.1% in 2015 and 3.1 in 2016, compared with less than 1% last year. So this is where it's very, very important here, and we're going to leave this at that. And let me look at where we are here. Okay, we're doing pretty good. Trying to do pretty good. And let me see. I'll start out a little bit of the last debate. This is from the fixed team on the 12 top-tier Democratic candidates. Starting off here with Julian Castro. Good evening, buenas tardes. A medic, Texas. Welcome to Texas. Applause. Great to be here at Texas Southern University, home of the Tigers. You know, on the 20th of January 2011 at 21 at 12:05, we're going to have a Democratic president in the White House and Senate and House. There will be life after DJ Trump. The truth is that our problems didn't start just with DJ Trump. We won't solve them by embracing old ideas. We need a bold vision, a universal pre-K and universal health care, unleashing millions of new jobs in clean energy. A tax system that rewards people who work for a living. But first we have to win, and that means exciting a new, young, and diverse coalition of Americans who are ready for a bold future. This is what Kennedy did. This is what Carter did. This is what is what Barack Obama did, and it's what I can do in this race. Get back Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Florida, Georgia, Arizona, and finally turn Texas blue and say goodbye to DJ Trump. Next came Amy Klobuchar. Good evening, Texas 7. I believe what unites us up here, the 10 of us, is much stronger than what divides us. Kind of a Cory Booker line there. I think that that's true of our country too. Now, I may not be the loudest person up here, but I think we've already got that in the White House. Houston, we have a problem. This is, we have a guy there who is literally running our country like a game show. That's a good line. He would rather live and lead. I think we need something different. I'm a person that tells the truth. I don't make promises I can't keep. I have people's back. I believe that to win, you bring people with you, and this is how you govern as well. So you're going to hear lots of ideas up here tonight. Some will be great, but if we see that some of them seem a little off track, I've got a better way. If you feel stuck in the middle of the extremes in our politics and you're tired of the noise, I guess she's referring to Nate Silver signaling the noise, you've got a home with me, because I don't want to be president of half America. That's the theme, but Barack Obama, I want to be the president of all America. Beto O'Rourke, in honor of his debate stage. It is wonderful to be back in Houston, Texas, here at TCU. On the 3rd of August, El Paso, Texas, two things in El Paso became clear, and I think produced a turning point for this country. First is how dangerous DJ Trump is, and the costs and consequences of his presidency. Racism and violence have long been a part of America, and was welcomed out in the open and directed in my hometown of El Paso, where 22 people were killed and dozens more gravely injured by a man carrying a weapon he should never had been able to buy in the first place, inspired to kill all by our president. Now, he put it out there. Second, this is how insufficient our politics to meet the threat that we have right now, the bitterness, the pettiness, the smallness of the moment, the incentives to attack one another and to try to make differences without distinctions, mountains out of molehills, from Dr. King. We've got to be bigger. We have to see clearly. We have to speak honestly and to act decisively. That's what I want to be as your President of the United States. From Senator Booker, it was over 20 years ago that I was a law student and moved into inner city Newark to serve as a tenants' right lawyer and to try to address the challenges in my community. I was sobered by the gun violence and substandard housing. my greatest moment, a woman named Virginia Jones, who challenged me and said, "Boy, if you're going to see in this neighborhood is a problem, all there, and that's all there's going to be. But if you are stubborn and defiant and put forth a vision that can unify people, we'll make a transformation change." She was a church woman that said, "Without vision, the people would perish." This is exactly what we did, and we created extraordinary unity in our community, and we did things that other people think was impossible. That's the story of America, and at best we unified. We think common cause, common purpose. The difference among the Democrats on this stage is not as great as the urgency for us to unite as a party, and not just to beat a DJ Trump, a lofty situation there. And I'm going to skip some of these and get to, I think, Bernie Sanders. We'll do Kamala Harris. So I plan on speaking tonight, talking with you about my plans to address the problems that keep you up at night. But first, a few words about DJ Trump. So, President Trump, you spent the last 2.5 years full-time trying to sow hatred and division amongst us. That is why we've got nothing done. You have used hate, intimidation, and fear, and over 12,000 lines as a way to detract from your failed policies and broken promises. The only reason you have been indicted is because there's a memo in the Justice Department saying a sitting president can't be charged with a crime. But here's what you don't get. This is what you don't get, is that the American people are so much better than this. That we know that the vast majority of us have so much more in common than it separates us. As Barack Obama line, regardless of race, we're not blue states, we're not red states, where we live and on the party in which we register to vote. And I plan on focusing on common issues, our common hopes and desires, and something a politician always wants to do. Now President Trump can go back to watching Fox News. And we're going to end this with Bernie Sanders. Let's be blunt and tell you what you don't hear much about in Congress or in the media, and that it is, and it's going without saying, that we must defeat Trump, the most dangerous president in history of this country. We must do more. We must do more. We have got to recognize this country is moving to an oligarchy. Jimmy Carter talked about a form of society when a handful of billionaires controlled the economy and political life. Like Wilbur Ross at the department he is at there, and he was able to subvert the National Weather Service. As president, I'm prepared to take them on. Yes, we will raise the minimum wage to a living wage. We will finally make sure every American has health coverage as a human right, not a privilege. And he's the only candidate talked about that. And yes, we will address the catastrophic crises of climate change and transform our energy system away from fossil fuels. From Elizabeth Warren, I think we'll have to do her. I was born and raised in Oklahoma, but I'm sure glad to be in Texas tonight. All three of my brothers served in military bases here in Texas. That was their ticket to the middle class. Me, I got my big opportunity about a half mile down the road from here at the University of Houston. Back then it cost $50 a semester. For that price, I could pay for a part-time waitressing job. I got to finish my 4-year degree, and I became a special needs teacher. I didn't know she was a special needs teacher. Anyway, after law school, my first big job was back here in Houston. Then I had 2 little kids. She moved to Aunt B in. Interesting there. The path to America's middle class has gotten a lot smaller and a lot narrower. Today, service members are preyed upon by predatory lenders. Students are crushed by debt. And families can't afford a child care. That is a big one right there. I know what is broke, and I know how to fix it. And this is one thing about Elizabeth Warren. She is a policy type, but her policies are unlike some that would theorize in a policy she can actually get things done, and such as with the Consumer Financial Protection Agency. We'll go now and do the sports, and we'll come back to this ESPN and see. Not certain where we're going. Yeah, we'll attempting to go. Nonetheless, the U.S. Basketball team first lost to France, and were further embarrassed there by a loss to, who was it, Croatia? No, football teams here. But pathetic enough was the problems with the basketball team. They're now, I think, so far down they don't know how to go up again. Mr. Popovich, of course, the coach there, a lot of players did not play. Tournament is in China. They don't have much about any of that beat them the last time around. They've been falling and tumbling, let's just say that. We've had the last few episodes a problem getting our scoreboard scoring. For what reason, I have no idea there. We'll have to go to something else to work on it. And the ever elusive scoreboard, and like it's popping up finally here, if we're lucky. This would be Major League Baseball last night on the 12th. Oakland finally pulled it out on the Cardinals were at the Rockies. The Cardinals won there, and the Cubs beat the Padres. And this is an earlier situation here. And the Yankees beat the Tigers. I don't have the final score here. We do have this one. The D-backs were New York Mets 11-1. The Yankees 10-4 with the hapless Tigers. The Brewers pulled it out 3-2 on the Marlins in Florida. And Kansas City beat the White Sox. The contest is going nowhere. And this is evidently an earlier version here. Anyway. So we'll go back here, I suppose, yeah. There are times we have earlier versions and we'll get this scoring thing fixed. As we get many things fixed around here, we'll have to look. Anyway, let me just wrong along here. Well, we're trying once more and we'll give up on our scores because this was an earlier scoreboard and not the scoreboard that we wanted. Nonetheless, we'll have the week that was on a Saturday here on WBRN Radio, and a special for Robert Mugabe. We'll have that. And yeah, we're not brought up the ones here. Anyway, we'll leave it at where we are right now, and we'll see you on Saturday morning, hopefully, and have a good weekend, everyone. Talk to you later. Good day, as Paul Harvey would say.